Okay. Of course, my name is Peter Vlaming, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself. And it's supposed to be student-centered teaching, right? But I'm going to be teacher-centered teaching because I think it's going to help us a little bit. A little bit about my own testimony of teaching French. I'm a French teacher. When I was in 7th grade is when I started learning French. And it was also the first opportunity I had. And the idea, the concept of speaking in another tongue other than my mother tongue with different sounds and intonations and like the way to form your syllables just seemed fascinating to me. Just absolutely fascinating. And to hear, well, in my case it was French, to hear French was just it was so beautiful. I'm like, there are people who function and live and do their daily lives in that language that's coming out of their mouths. And I could learn how to talk like that. I could learn how to speak that language, and it would open a door for me into a whole nother world. Okay, so I would sound really cool, and it would open a door for me to another world, to another culture. And for me, I just thought to myself, that is a skill I want to have. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir. I'm going to do a lot of preaching to the choir tonight, but that is a skill I wanted to have. And to this day, I still get exhilarated. Is that English? Yes. It's exhilarating for me to speak French. I was doing Skype with a buddy from France, one of my best friends. He's over on the Swiss border. I'm in our apartment in Williamsburg. And he's telling me this good news he's just had. And I'm encouraging him, and he's encouraging me. We're having this conversation all in French, and it was one of those moments where it was like, I've never gotten tired of this. I haven't gotten tired of speaking French, of speaking a language other than my mother tongue. And also, we all know as language teachers that learning other languages helps us master our own language. And tonight, we're going to talk about speaking activities, but I don't want to what's the word I'm looking for? Ignore the importance of reading and writing. To the chagrin of my English teachers and to English teachers in general, when they hear me say this, it's true that through learning another language, in my case French, through learning another language, I started to better master my own tongue, English, through learning French. I discovered English grammar through French grammar. And I love the written word. I have a thing for fountain pens because you can express yourself with in writing, and I think that's really cool. So I love the written word, but the most important thing we do as language teachers is introduce our students to speaking another language. And the number one reason, well, first of all, the number one reason, in my opinion, to be a language teacher. Oh, I have this fancy thing here. I have to learn how to use it. Okay, why teach world languages? Now, I'm going back to the beginning. Don't worry, this will not take 4 hours. I just want to give this little introduction. Come on in. Why teach world languages? Because speaking a language other than your mother tongue is cool. It is cool. I know there are other adjectives that I could use, but speaking that with other sonorities, other syllables, other intonations it's cool. And I dare say that the students desire that. They desire to be able to speak in another language as well. They have that desire deep down. That's what they really want. Okay, some take our classes because they have to take it for a requirement, and they want to get through it. But I would say there's a good portion of our students who really think foreign language is speaking another language is cool. And for me, once again, going back to my own motivations when I was younger, more than wanting it to look good in a college resume or opening up and making myself more marketable, it was just the fact that I was going to be able to have a door into another world and sound cool doing it. Okay, ensuite. So now, if our goal is to have our students speak the language that we're teaching, speak the target language, okay, how do we get them to speak the target language? Okay, this is kind of complicated, so just bear with me. We have to have them speak the target language. That's what we have to do. The thing is getting them to talk, getting them to open their mouths. Just like babies, just like my little girl, I have two little girls. One of them is 17 months. She's just starting to formulate real words in French and in English. But in order to get there, she has to make all kinds of sounds. She has to make all kinds of different sounds. She's trying. She's working it out. She's grinding it out. And that's how adults, teenagers, younger children, that's how we learn language. We have to speak in order to progress, in order to learn it. When I studied overseas at the University of Paris for a year, and there were students, I'm thinking of some American students in particular, who went to all the classes, and they were surrounded by French all day, but they hung out with English speakers, which is fine. I mean, they hung out with English speakers outside of class and never truly practiced spoken French. They didn't practice in the target language. And you could see that even at the end of a year in Paris, they couldn't speak French much better than when they arrived. And there are other cases of people, you can learn how to read and write in another language and not be able to, and even understand it, I can't think, by hearing it, through hearing it, but if you don't speak, you won't actually learn how to speak the language. You have to speak. So now the big question is, how do we get them to speak the target language? Okay, but before we do this, I want you to talk to a neighbor. It can be a group of 2 or 3. I'd like you to tell me or talk to each other about some of the problems you encounter during speaking activities with your students. What are some of the problems you have with speaking activities with your students? It can be anything. Just take 1 or 2 minutes. You could talk to a neighbor. And those who are online, if you could send in comments, that would be great. I can't walk and chicken on. Problems you encounter with your students during speaking activities. Okay, I hear the conversations are dying down. Those of you who are online, who are off-site, just if the site manager can send in any comments, that would be great. Okay, as for us, what are some of the things you encounter? What are some of the problems you encounter? Okay, they don't speak in complete sentences, okay? They don't speak at all. They don't speak at all, okay? Anything else? Okay, they don't circumlocute. Thank you. I'm supposed to know that. I'm supposed to be the expert. Yeah, circumlocute. Try to find a way around. You ever have, well actually before I give it away, let's see what else some other people are saying. Keeping them on topic, okay, intimidated about making mistakes, lack of vocabulary, off-task behavior. Do you ever get, you have a speaking activity and all of a sudden you look over and they're like 4, 5, 6 kids all kind of in a circle in the corner of the room? They're supposed to be talking to several people, or like one person at a time. Fear of risk-taking, yes. They repeat each other's mistakes. Yes, they repeat, oh, I didn't think about that one. Repeat each other's mistakes. Okay. Good. Fear of risk-taking, actually, that's one of the things that I didn't really think about addressing, but it's probably one of the most important ones. And we need to encourage our kids that they're going to make mistakes, just like my little daughter who makes mistakes speaking, as she's formulating words. They're going to make mistakes, and it's normal. It's normal. Like with a child, they're not silent for a year and a half, 2 years, and all of a sudden they start speaking like Shakespeare. Okay, it doesn't work like that. You got to grind it out. It's little by little. And so anyway, all of these things that have come in, okay, like insufficient vocabulary, not making good use of vocabulary, okay. And what we've said here, I hope that what I'm going to say is going to address some of these issues. Now, I know the title of the workshop is Conversation Building Activities. However, I'm not going to give you tonight. I'm not going to give you a long list of conversation building activities. I hope I haven't misled anybody, but I want to break down 2 different activities and show you what I think are some of the important components for a solid conversation activity, instead of giving you a list of activities. Okay, maintenant. So that's what we're going to do. Oh, you got to go back. Get that. Right there. He's the expert. No, I can move it forward then. Like I said, I hope we're going to address most of your problems with students, like keeping the students on task and a successful speaking activity. So what I'm going to do for you is break down the anatomy of a speaking activity that I actually did recently with some of my students in a lower level class, the French 1 class. And there are differences between how we approach a speaking activity with a lower level class and how we approach a speaking activity with a higher level class. But at the end of the day, we want to get the kids from saying, oui, ça va, no merci, oui merci. We want to get them away from just responding very simply to questions, to elaborating, to saying what they think, through working through ideas together, as we say, constructing meaning together in conversation. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for kids to be able to express themselves. And what I would actually even say is language is our primary medium of relationship. It's our primary medium of relationship. You get to know someone through spending time and seeing their habits, but also through discussion, through speaking with one another, through communicating. And as human beings, it's one of the things that makes us particularly human is that we speak. And the kids deep down, though they may not express it, they know that our students, they know that it's one of the things that makes us particularly human is language, and that communication brings us into relationship with other people. And that's what we want to bring them to have a level of language in the target language where they can actually communicate at a deeper level with sophisticated ideas and sharing and constructing meaning together. Okay, so now, like I said, with regards to a baby or a toddler all of a sudden speaking perfect, whether it be English or any other language, it doesn't work like that. The same thing with our students. The illustration I thought of is, if you want to teach somebody to swim, so you want to teach a child to swim, you don't take them to the end of the pier and then throw them into 12 feet of water and say, well, I hope they can work it out. So let's see if they can work it out. And it doesn't work like that. They can drown. And that's what happens sometimes with our students. They drown. Now, with higher levels, if we're not allowing them to explore in the deeper water, they're going to be stifled as well. They're going to be held back. But in the beginning, we don't want to throw them out in the deep water. We have to first take them to the beach, let's play on the beach, and then we're going to get our feet wet, and then we'll play in the surf, and then we'll go out waist deep and play frisbee maybe, and then we'll go out to, like, it's up to your shoulders, you can bob up and down with the waves, and then, okay, your feet are coming off of your feet are coming off the what would you say, the sea floor, the ground, and you're swimming a little bit. And then, okay, a little bit later, you can maybe swim out to the buoy and back, but you don't swim out to the buoy and back right away. You got to go step by step. And that's probably one of the main things that I've learned in my short experience in teaching languages. So the first thing the kids have to know, first thing they need before any given speaking exercise, I know this goes without saying, but let's take it step by step. They have to have the proper tools. They have the proper tools. So what are, I'm not even going to ask this because it's kind of redundant. For example, in one of my units, just recently, in French 1, we did a unit on weather and the seasons. And even though we had addressed the vocabulary and the expressions the day before, we went over, the first thing I did was to go over the vocabulary, go over the expressions, okay, what's the weather like, it's cold out, il fait froid, il fait chaud, il pleut, quel temps fait-il, and any grammatical constructs that you'll need to carry out the assignment. Make sure that they've been, if you're introducing it, that's fine, but if you've introduced it the class period before, the preceding class, go over it again. Get them back into the groove before you get into a speaking exercise. We're going to try to give them all the tools that they need, prepare them as much as we can so that they can have a successful speaking activity. And one of them is very simply going over the tools that they'll need. Okay, and I'll just give you a little very simple illustration. Voilà. C'est quelle saison? Est-ce que quelqu'un parle français ici? Quelqu'un parle français? Oui, madame. Alors, quel temps, c'est quelle saison? Quelle saison est-ce? What season is it? C'est l'hiver, voilà, l'hiver, c'est l'hiver. And I'd be doing this with my students. Okay? Et puis, I'm just going to do a few of these. Et en hiver, est-ce qu'il fait chaud? Is it hot outside in winter time? Non, il fait pas chaud. Il fait froid. Voilà, il fait froid. Okay, so we're going over the vocabulary. We're already getting to speak. I'm starting to ask them questions. Et quelle saison? C'est quelle saison? C'est le printemps. It's the spring. Le printemps. Et comment fait-il en printemps? Il fait... Ouais, quel temps fait-il? Il fait beau, il fait bon. Voilà. Mais aussi au printemps, parfois, est-ce qu'il fait toujours bon au printemps? Est-ce qu'il fait toujours bon? Voilà, parfois il fait mauvais ou il pleut. I'm sorry, I'm getting into French, and we're not all French teachers, but I'm asking you questions about the weather, vocabulary and expressions that we would have gone over. And what I asked her was, well, is it always nice out in the springtime? Well, no, sometimes the weather's not nice. Sometimes it's raining. Sometimes the weather's bad. And so we'll go through this. This is just an example of well, I went too fast, but it's okay. That's just an example of a warm-up activity, an activity that gets them back. I know that there are what I call edu-speak expressions for this, specifically expressions I'm not using, but I say getting back into the groove. Or in French, they actually say getting back into the back, getting back into the groove of the lesson. Et maintenant. Now, I put up here modeling the activity, okay? Show the students exactly what you're looking for. But in this particular case, I do it twice because through the warm-up, I'm actually modeling the assignment that we're going to be doing. They don't know that yet. Okay, but at one point or another before the assignment, you have to show them exactly what you're looking for. That's my opinion. Show them exactly what you're looking for. May they be able to see it. Explain it clearly, but also show them. Okay? So with that, in this particular assignment, with regard to showing them, they're going to be finding out what their classmate's favorite season is. Okay? They're going to find out what the classmate's favorite season is and why. Okay? And I'm totally getting off of my PowerPoint, so that's okay. We can bounce around. And that's one of the big things in the assignment is giving the students, as you explain the assignment and in your assignment, make sure the students have a choice where they're expressing a personal opinion. Okay? One of the ways for them to more deeply assimilate the target language is to have a choice. They have to choose between different things and give an opinion. Now, of course, it's going to be more limited in the lower levels. In the upper levels, you want to get towards open-ended discussions. You know, well, what do you think about the upcoming elections? There's a big one, and to be able to, you know, that's our goal, is for them to be able to articulate their thoughts, you know, well, the sky's the limit. But with the beginning levels, it has to be fairly restreint. It has to be fairly narrow. If you don't make it narrow, they'll be overwhelmed. The waves are going to wash over their heads. So show them exactly what you expect. Model the kind of, whoops. Can you tell that I do this often? I don't do this often. Okay. Exactly what you expect. Model what you're going to be doing, what you expect of them, and make sure that in the activity there's a level of choice. They're expressing something personal. Whenever you can make the language more personal to them, they assimilate it better. And also with the activity, and I don't have it written up here now, we'll go over it again later, is may the activity be task-oriented. They have to do something. Okay, maybe in a warm-up you're just kind of chit-chatting, or having them chit-chat, what do you think about this, what do you think about that? But in the activity, may it be task-oriented. There's something that they have to do that requires use of the language. Okay, information that they have to acquire, or something they have to locate. There's a task involved. Okay, now the other thing, accountability. What I do in my classes, and this has helped me a ton, I saw a real change in the results of students' attention span, staying on focus, staying on task, is having a tangible form of accountability. So here I put for them to, you require them to hand in a record of their interactions. And how I do it with the lower level, but also with the upper levels, and we're going to see an example in the upper level class later, but with the lower levels is I have them trace out a grid. This activity that I'm talking about now is actually a survey. There are other forms of speaking activities. This one's a survey. But I have them write out a grid. I draw it on the board. I say, get out a piece of paper, en français bien sûr, prends une feuille de papier, and draw exactly like me. And I draw a grid on the piece of paper, loosely paper sideways, and I say, on the left-hand column, you put your number 1 to 10. Okay, for example, number 1 to 10. Next column, I wanted to show this on an electronic board. We don't have it. Okay. On the next column, it's very simple. Have the favorite season. The heading will be saison préférée, favorite season, and then in the next column, pourquoi, why. Okay. And they have a choice of options there. There's actually, obviously, they can choose between the 4 seasons. But then in the why, they also have some choices with the limited vocabulary and expressions they already have. They can say because it's nice out, because it's cool out, because it snows. So you're already getting them to express more, to go beyond just giving one single answer, but explaining, elaborating, and having that accountability in their hands. The piece of paper where they actually have to write something down really helps some to focus. When they know that, when the students know that this piece of paper, if they don't do what I ask, and that it will affect their grade, for some it's a really good motivator, and they do. They get to work, and I've seen the change when I hand that out. The kids stay more focused. The students stay more focused. And just recently, when I handed back, and what I do is when I get the accountability the next day, I collect at the end of the exercise, I collect it, and I just go through them. I write, I correct little spelling mistakes, or just really quickly. It's not. I don't want to. It's not something that's going to take a long time, but they'll check. They did well. Get a check mark. Bien, très bien, c'est bon, okay. And when I hand them back and they see the check mark and they see the c'est bien, I even saw one of my kids today, he goes, yes! It's like, okay, it was just a little participation grade, but to see that his accountability, that piece of paper, that I looked at it, that it mattered to me, that I graded it, he was excited about it. Ça change. Okay. This is what I skipped. I already actually told you in the beginning. Okay, using the language to accomplish a task. That's one of the main elements. And require the students to express a personal choice and opinion to elaborate on it. I've gone out of order. Okay, now, next. The instructor's role during the activity. Now what I do is, once I say, okay, we're going to do this for 10 minutes, let's say if it's a longer activity. Let's say they have to talk to 10 people. Repetition is good. It's not a problem if a speaking activity is a little bit longer. But what I do is I sit at my desk and I look at my emails. That's a joke. No, I don't sit at my desk and look at the emails. I monitor the students. I walk around. I participate. I have them ask me the questions they're asking everyone else. I ask them those questions. I participate just like they're participating. And I make small corrections, but I try not to be too overbearing. That's one of the... Oops. Got used to this. Present, participate. Encourage your students. There we go. Next thing is when you're hearing, and I'm sure that you do this, but it just makes my day when I hear someone with one of my students with a good French accent. It makes my day. I hear them, they pronounce it correctly. I'm like, oh yeah, bon accent, c'est très bien ça. Or it's just if they're on task, they're doing what they're supposed to. I encourage them. Très bien, continue. Ah bon? Or I'll ask them, maybe I'll make some kind of comment to encourage them to keep going. Okay? And then finally, correct your students. Correct them, but don't be too overbearing. Don't be overbearing. In the sense that sometimes the fact that we know the language well and we want to help them out, there can be a tendency to want to jump on every mistake they make, every little pronunciation problem with pronunciation. The sentence is incomplete, and yeah, we have to correct errors, but know when to correct and know when to pull back. And there's an art to that. You know your students, you know their personalities, but the idea is not to stifle them during the activity, so that they keep trying. Like I said earlier, they're always going to make mistakes, but we want them to keep trying. Okay, ensuite, next. Okay, wrapping up. So after the activity, okay, I think it's good, first of all, to set a time limit on the activity so that they know they have to get it done. It also helps them to focus. But afterwards, ask the students to give an account, okay, as they all sit back on their desk. And that can take a few minutes, and maybe you're much better at classroom management than I am, but re-corralling the class after speaking activity can take a few minutes. They're all sitting down. Okay, now, okay, Johnny, who did you talk to? Well, this is going to be in French, of course. I spoke to Jane. Okay, what's Jane's favorite season? Oh, her favorite season's winter. Well, why is that her favorite season? Oh, because it snows. And, well, bien sûr, in the target language, but you're getting into practice as well, the third person, not just the first person, the second person. But also, if you do this regularly, they know that they're going to have to give an account of, not just on paper, but give an account orally of what went on. And it keeps them speaking. Okay, next. Oh yeah, so that goes without saying, have to do it. Course collected, I already talked about that. And now upper level students. Okay, upper level students, they still need structure, okay? They still need structure. Let's say if I were to specify, I'd say 1 and 2 as lower level, and then 3 and up as upper level. So upper level students, they still need structure. They still need to be led by the hand into activities for it to be a success. But they need to be led to elaborate more abstractly. Okay? And as you go, you always want to, what's the word I'm looking for? Always encouraging the students to elaborate. Okay, why do you think that? Okay, you went to the football game this weekend. Did you like it? Yes. Well, who was there? Oh, there was this person. Did you have fun? Yes. So why did you have fun? Well, I saw my friends. Getting them to elaborate. And as we go further in the levels, we want to get them to elaborate more. And like I said before, negotiating meaning with others in conversation. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'd like to show you what an upper level class looks like. And some of you may have seen this already. Here, I'll stand up. May have seen this already. I actually saw it at a workshop, I have to admit. I just thought it was brilliant, but it shows a language lesson, a speaking activity in an upper level class from the Annenberg Foundation. Any way to turn it on?
My name is Peter, and I teach French in high school. The class is a level 3 class, and I consult to freshmen through seniors, with the majority being sophomores and juniors.
This level 3 class in McLean, Virginia has been working throughout the year on developing more complex language skills. In today's lesson, Ms. Toulouse introduces the students to the conditional tense. Using carefully organized activities, she guides them through how to create this new structure to better express their ideas about community life, near and abroad.
The theme of this unit is the community and the quality of life in the community. But the grammatical objective that I selected for this lesson was the conditional.
Nous avons parlé de quoi la dernière fois? Nous avons parlé de la communauté, n'est-ce pas? Nous habitons à Faire-Pascal, nous habitons. Beaucoup de gens disent que c'est une excellente communauté. D'accord? Et je suis d'accord, il y a beaucoup d'avantages d'habiter en Espagne. Alors maintenant, vous allez avoir une petite conversation avec votre
Oral activity notes taken, and each part.
Okay, what's she doing there? This is the beginning of the lesson. What's she doing? Yep. She gave instructions, but well, the first question was, yeah, what did we do last class? What did we do last class? And I've seen this 20 times now, so I don't expect you to get everything. What did we do last class? And then she's talking to students about the subject, the theme, and bringing up the vocabulary and expressions that they were using. Okay.
Have to come up with 3 reasons why they enjoy living in the community and elaborate a little bit, give additional details whenever possible. And that's the big difference between the beginning of level 3 and the end of level 3. You should be responding and adding something.
Alors, l'espace vert, c'est dans les clés et je trouve les restaurants, donc beaucoup de aussi, j'aime très souvent avec le centre commercial. Tu aimes faire du shopping? Oui, j'aime.
Sorry to interrupt, but where is Bill? Are you here? Apparently they can't hear the audio very well at the site. Be right there. Where's the camera? Be right there. Okay, what are the kids doing? What's the element of their conversation? What are some of the essential elements of their conversation? Yeah, why do you like it here in McLean, Virginia? Why do you like it here? With your partner, talk about three reasons. She gives them 3 reasons to talk about why, or to explain why they like living in McLean. And this is a warm-up. Okay, this is a warm-up before they get into another activity.
Tu travailles, quel emploi? Où est-ce que tu travailles?
J'ai travaillé en contributerie.
Mais pour le moment, tu ne travailles pas.
Je pense qu'il a plus d'espace vert en Ukraine. La station de métro est près de la Cité à Washington.
Okay, and what was the teacher, other than holding the timer? They showed her briefly. What was she doing with the students? Yeah, interacting with them, asking the same questions, getting involved in their conversation.
D'accord, ça va? D'accord, excellent classe. Alors, dites-moi un peu, quels sont certains, tu peux me donner un avantage d'habiter dans cette communauté? D'accord?
Il y a beaucoup de cultures diverses dans cette île, alors c'est un avantage chez nous.
Parce qu'il y a beaucoup de personnes de nationalité différentes?
Oui.
Très bien. Chris?
C'est beaucoup d'espace vert.
Il y a beaucoup d'espace vert et tu aimes les sports et l'espace vert? C'est reposant, c'est agréable. D'accord? Ce n'est pas dangereux. Alors, c'est un bon endroit pour habiter avec les enfants. C'est une bonne communauté pour une famille. Oui. Excellent. Qu'est-ce que nous avons fait à la dernière classe?
On est allé à la bibliothèque et on est allé sur Internet.
Okay, and that part where she brings them back together after the timer, what is she doing? What's she doing? What's the goal of the questions she's asking? Just to get information, just because she's curious about their answers? Get the next activity, and also what I would suggest is it's also a way of accountability. After she brings them back together, then asks them to give a response. And the class is, I'm assuming, is used to that after their preliminary speaking activity, coming back together and then having the teacher ask, well, what are the results of your discussion?
Internet pour voir la communauté au Canada et on a comparé la communauté avec notre communauté ici en Afrique.
D'accord, donc on a analysé un peu la communauté de Hall. We're looking at the quality of life in the community. What makes a good community? Why are some communities more attractive than others? What kind of community would you like to live in? And we're looking at our own community, but we're also comparing it to other communities, certainly Hall in Canada. From there, we're hoping to go to a unit on the ecology. So we're branching out to more abstract realms, more advanced concepts. Maintenant,
So she said it herself, in French, in the upper levels, going more into abstract constructs, being able to concept, being able to express more abstract ideas. And also a thing that I find brilliant is she's really bringing in stuff that's concrete. Now, none of them have been to, that's kind of an oxymoron, I'm talking about abstract, I'm talking about concrete, but none of them have been to Hull, Canada, but she's showing where, okay, here is somewhere in another country where where they speak this language we're using. She's showing them ways in which the language is incarnate in other parts of the world. But I think that's one of the things, I'm getting off track here, but one of the things is it helps the kids to see that the target language is useful, that it exists outside of the classroom. Because sometimes I think we're in our 4 walls of our classrooms, and the students think that, well, French, Spanish is here, and then, but how is it relevant outside? And so showing them things other areas of the world where it's used.
Je vais vous donner un article de l'Internet sur la communauté de Hall. Vous allez prendre un crayon ou un stylo et vous allez encercler deux activités que vous aimeriez faire si vous alliez à Hall. Deux activités encerclées. Est-ce que c'est nécessaire de comprendre chaque mot? Non. Mais s'il y a quelque chose que vous ne comprenez pas, vous levez la main et je viens vous aider. Ça va? C'est clair? During the last class, they had gone on the internet and they had them investigate the website that the City of Hull has put up. And it's a really wonderful website because it's got a lot of visuals. So today I gave them an article on Hull that basically described what Hull as a city has to offer its inhabitants. The object was to get them to read the article in more depth, to scan it more, to not necessarily understand every word, but understand a lot more of it, and to pick out things that were pertinent to themselves.
Now, this is reading and writing, which I haven't addressed, but they're going to use this as their accountability later. You'll see.
Que veut dire baignade?
Baignade.
Oui.
Vous comprenez se baigner?
Oui.
Oui, c'est nager.
Oui.
Oui. Donc une baignade, c'est aller à la plage ou à la piscine.
Ah ouais.
D'accord? Et nager. Une baignade, c'est un peu un synonyme de tout ce que tu vas faire au Bahamas.
Oui.
D'accord?
Si avec le golf, on peut le faire dans l'été aussi.
Tu fais de la voile?
De temps en temps, mais ça dépend où je suis, parce qu'ici, il n'y a pas la chance à faire des voiles ici. Et pour les parents, tu sais, on a de la théâtre, ça dépend qu'est-ce qu'ils veulent, je sais pas.
D'accord?
Oui.
Merci beaucoup.
I just want to say, she must be a really excellent teacher. I don't know where the kids, all these kids have excellent accents. For those of you who teach French, their accents are really, really good.
D'accord, ça? Vous avez fini? Oui, tout le monde a fini? D'accord? Bon. Oui, j'allais à Hall.
Oh.
Qu'est-ce que vous feriez si vous alliez à Hall? Qui peut me dire?
Qui sont faits pour les touristes. Could, I would.
Très bien. As I was planning la langue, oui, il a frappé la langue. Voudrais-je, voudrais. Aujourd'hui, nous allons regarder et comparer un peu de conditions affirmatives et humaines intermédiaires.
Provides model sentences in which activity.
Chaque question, vous avez un choix de 2, 3 ou 4 choses, oui.
Okay, here, what they were doing, writing, I didn't want to listen to the whole grammar lesson. That's not what we're here for tonight. But we are going to watch them in the next part of the speaking activity. And so here what she's doing in the first part is they have what she says, you're going to choose and circle your choice. So having a choice is an integral part of the lesson. You know, they're expressing their personal ideas, their personal choices.
Vous allez faire un choix, vous allez choisir et encercler votre choix. I had them also look at the question to see if there were any words they didn't understand, and then to look at what choice they would make. In every question, it said, would you prefer? And they had to choose the one out of 2, 3, or 4 options they would prefer, and so forth. So they were, 1, understanding the question, 2, making a personal choice. Je comprends pas. Oui. Madame, she really tries to understand what and keep. Est-ce que tu as fait ou plus d'argent? Bon, exact. Là? Oui, d'accord.
Bien, qu'est-ce que c'est une lapin?
À la fin, c'est un petit animal avec des longues oreilles qui saute.
Ah,
Oui.
oui. If we don't know a word, we have to ask what that word is, but we have to ask in French. And then, rather than just give us the English equivalent, Madame Toulouse will describe it for us. And she's very patient, she'll keep describing it, she'll think of new and creative ways, she'll draw it on the board. She just won't, she'll make you figure it out.
Okay, what a student. We're not that we're looking at a little bit more, but what a student. He was very excellent. Excellent thoughts on it. One of the things as well with the speaking exercise, I know this goes without saying, so we hear it all the time. I'll stand up. We hear it all the time is, staying in the target language, staying in the target language. And it's, what I've realized is that my students I've taught, even though they might complain even violently sometimes with regards to staying in the target language, they actually appreciate it. This summer we had the French Academy that was here, and the kids put up a domain on, or I don't know what it's called on Facebook. It's a club for all those who went to the academy, and I get alerts when people post on that. Can you tell how tech savvy I am? I don't even know what it's called, but on Facebook, like a club or a group or whatever. And there is a student, I hope I'm not saying too much, but a student who talked about a class where the French it was French of course, but where French wasn't spoken all the time. And they were disappointed. They were disappointed that the class wasn't staying in the target language. And I think for many of us, we like to communicate. We like to communicate with our students. And if we can give a clear response, if we can give the clearer we can be with our response, because we want them to know the answer, we want them to learn it, I think that we have a tendency to go to the language that they're going to best understand. But in some instances, it's necessary. I hope I don't get grondé, yelled at for saying that. But in some instances, I think it's necessary. But often we're doing them a disservice by not trying to stay in the target language. And by doing this, by staying in the target language, the teacher in this example, in this lesson, is keeping them in the flow, dans le move. She's keeping them in the flow of speaking the target language and going back and forth. And as you know, as language teachers, it's actually easier to stay in one language than to go back and forth. Interpretation is actually very difficult. When you're speaking in your target language, or in one language, you're thinking in that language. When you're speaking in another language, you're thinking in that language. But when you're going back and forth, it's like, il faut changer de registre. You're always going back and forth in your brain, in your mind, between two worlds. And it's easier to stay in one language. And I really do think that the kids, whether they express it or not, they appreciate it. Voilà, on va continuer avec l'exemple.
Maintenant, nous allons commencer l'activité orale. Vous avez encerclé une réponse pour chaque phrase. Oui? Attendez, instruction, ne bougez pas. Quand je donne le signal, vous allez vous lever, vous allez prendre votre feuille de papier et vous allez essayer de trouver quelqu'un qui a la même réponse que vous. Mais cette fois-ci, c'est conceptuel, donc vous élaborez un peu, un détail supplémentaire si possible. D'accord. Vous allez parler à plusieurs personnes.
I always like to start any new concept, a new structure, with some sort of either paired activity or a whole class activity, but in a very controlled fashion. So they all stand up and they have to find another person in the room who has selected the same choice for one of the 10 questions that they have. If the answer matches theirs, they would say, me too, and then they're supposed to add another detail. It's not, at that point, created language, but it still has personal meaning. So it is communicative in a sense, although not open-ended.
So like she said, the exercise is not completely open-ended. She's walking them to the deeper water, as I would put it, okay? She's taking it out of the hand, walking them to the deeper water, step by step, going a little bit further. And like in the activity I showed earlier, she said she likes to have it fairly controlled, okay? Exactly what they're supposed to do, they know exactly what the tasks they're supposed to do, and what tools they have to get it done. Apparently there were some questions from the off-site that I want to take a look at. Joey, what do I got to do? Go on. Yes, okay, the URL for this Annandale video will be on the Washington and Lee website, on the Washington and Lee website with the PowerPoint. I'll have that page on there, so you can actually, when you look at it, when you bring it up from the Washington and Lee website, you can just click on it and it will bring you to that video. There are lots of videos from Annandale that are helpful. The instructions for the activity and target. Oh, okay, this is really good. I do want to continue with the video so you can see kind of how it wraps up. But I'll address that question right now. Is do I address students, or do we address students in lower levels in the target language? I guess it's like confession time. If I'm well prepared, yes. If I'm well prepared, I try to do as much as I can in the target language. But as we know, sometimes we have don't have the time that we would like. We often have the time we'd like to prepare as we would like. But the better prepared I am, the more able I am to present things in the target language. But for level 1, because my goal is to get them started, is to lead them out to speaking. In level 1, I admit, especially in the very beginning, and like in this first month of class, since the hurricane, I've been giving them instructions for speaking activity in English because I want to make sure they know what to do, and it has been effective. And they've done their best to stay in French, in the target language, during the activity. However, to make sure the instructions are clear, I give it in English, because the last thing I want to do is for them to be completely lost. If it takes me a half hour to explain the activity that's supposed to last 15 minutes, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Now, others may not think that it's a good idea, but that's what I've been doing. Also, I'm going to say something I think is probably it's a cardinal sin to say this in foreign language teaching circles, but English sometimes with the students isn't always bad. And I'll explain. If they're using English to encourage themselves or get themselves ready, psych themselves up, if you will, I think that's okay. If they're saying, okay, I've explained it, they're getting started, they found a partner, and they're like, okay, what are we supposed to do? Okay, I'm supposed to do this. I don't think that it's helpful to say, oh, Johnny, no English. I think it's okay if they're helping themselves along to get to the task. If it's helping them to move into the task, I think that English is okay and it can be helpful. But that's different than which happens, and that's what happens if I'm not monitoring closely, and I'm sure you've seen this well in your classes. You'll have them, okay, what's your favorite season? Okay, just let me see it. They'll have it written on the paper, and they'll say, let me see what you wrote. Okay, what's your favorite season? And then they write it down. Okay, why is it? Because you like, okay, and they're not doing anything in the target language. You're just trying to get through the exercise. Well, that's something else that you have to address. You'll have to address it and say, no, vous faites ça en français. It's in French, and usually if I stay on them, they stay on task. Voilà. Y a-t-il une autre question? No more questions.
J'aime le premier pour le quiz, pour le exercice.
Prononciation du tennis.
Du tennis. Mais tu... Et toi? Moi, c'est tout. Mais tu joues le tout aussi, oui? Oui, le tennis est bon. Alors, puis...
Tennis et le foot.
Oui, elle a deux réponses.
Qu'est-ce que c'est du tennis?
Okay. How does she approach correcting the student with regards to pronunciation? How would you explain her approach to correcting the student? How would you describe it? Yeah, she's very friendly. She's like, yeah, okay, like I'm going to correct you. Yeah, that's good. Okay, pronunciation, pronunciation, a little correction, okay? Right. Says what exactly. Says what it is, and then you may have noticed, but she actually in the end, the student still pronounced it wrong at the end. She still pronounced it wrong, but she didn't insist. She didn't insist. And yes, that's true. That's true because she rephrased the answer of her classmate using the correct pronunciation, but she wasn't hammering her over the head. And I think that's when I was just beginning as a teacher, I think that's probably something I had trouble with, is just wanting to, hey, I'm the French teacher and I know all the pronunciation, and bam, bam, correct them on the spot. In my own experience as a language learner, when I was in college, there was a place called La Maison Française, the French house. And it was a house where people who wanted to speak French could live. I didn't live there, but you could go there on Thursday afternoons. They had what was called La Pause Café, where you go and you could drink coffee, eat cookies, and just speak French. And so I would go to try to improve my spoken French. And it was the first time that my mouth and my jaw actually hurt because I was speaking French for more than 5 minutes at a time, like we did in class, because we don't use the same muscles. But there was a teacher there, a French teacher, who taught at the university, who lived there. And but she would correct everything that I didn't say right, that I said incorrectly. Boom, no, it's like this, no, it's like that, no, it's like this. And finally, I didn't want to say anything anymore. I didn't want to talk to her anymore because I was being stifled. I'm like, well, I can't even get 2 words out without a correction. Now that's also probably a commentary on the fact that I needed to improve in my French, but I wasn't allowed to advance. We have to allow our students to make mistakes in order for them to get better, in order for them to be comfortable with trying, with jumping out there into the deeper water.
Je ferai de la natation.
Sí, où est-ce que tu fais la natation?
Parce que j'aime nager. Où? À Spring Hill Location et à ma maison, j'ai une piscine.
Ah, j'adore le tel.
Mais non, je continue parce que je ne joue pas à la crosse maintenant. Mais je joue au tennis.
Est-ce que tu vas jouer pour l'équipe de Ukraine?
Est-ce que j'ai vu son nager cette année? Je crois pas parce que je crois les autres élèves sont des meilleurs joueurs de tennis que moi. Donc je crois que je ne peux pas faire l'équipe.
These kids are good. They have a really good level. Actually, I watched this video to be inspired because I would like my classroom to look more like this. The kids have a really excellent level in this. I think this is probably an exceptional class. They're really good. But the last 2 conversations we saw with the boy and the girl talking about swimming, and then these 3, you may have noticed that their conversation starts to evolve on its own. Oh, you'd like to play lacrosse. Well, are you going to play? I think that's what she said. Well, are you going to be playing on the high school team? Well, yes. Will you play? I think she said, are you going to be starting? Are you going to play varsity? And she said, well, no, I'm not as good as the other players. The conversations are starting to evolve. They're asking questions that they would like to ask in English. They're asking it in the target language. And that's, gosh, that should give all of us goosebumps if our students do that. That they're inquiring of so we're negotiating meeting with someone else in the target language. That's what we're hoping for.
J'aurais plus de temps libre pendant la semaine, car je n'utilise pas vraiment mon argent. Et oui, j'ai pas vraiment du temps à faire ce que je veux faire. J'aurais pris des vacances parce que j'aime voyager. C'est bien de voyager. Mais dans le numéro 2, tu choisirais où à voyager, quoi? Au Canada parce que j'aime le froid. Moi, j'aime faire le ski, j'aurais allé au Colorado aussi.
She would be assessing us, and I'm sure she does, just to make sure we facilitate the use of French. But she's also helping us along if we need it. It's more of a guiding hand, you might say.
Question, problème de vocabulaire, question. Je choisis.
Okay. Julie, PowerPoint again. Like I said, that video will be on the Washington and Lee's website, and you can just click, once you pull up the PowerPoint, you can click on it, and it will bring you to the page with the link. I found that sometimes the link goes directly to the video, sometimes it goes to the page where the video is. The video is number 17, if you want to write that down. I didn't put it up here, but it's number 17 on the Annenberg Foundation webpage that this will bring you to. It's, number 17. Sharing community. Voilà. Maintenant, donc on a fini avec ça. And like I said, that is for me, that's a pretty good example. I would like my classroom to look like that. And sometimes it approaches that. You know, and in my recent conversation activity with the seasons, it did go well. They were focused. And just like with the lower level where they had to fill out the grid, the higher level classes, French level 3, they also had that a piece of paper that helped guide them through the conversation, to help keep them focused. And I think that's a huge astuce. How do you say that? Astuce. A huge aspect of keeping the kids on task. It's giving them as much as you can to keep them on track, to help them along, to help them go out to deeper water. Because many of them can become overwhelmed really quickly. But if they have the tools to go step by step, the conversation activities go much better. Alors ensuite, avant que je clique, various activities. Now, like I said, what I didn't do was I didn't come up with a long list of activities, and I hope that there aren't no one's particularly disappointed. I hope I haven't disappointed you. The fact is that my repertoire is not yet that deep. Believe it or not, I'm a fairly new teacher. I don't consider myself a big-time veteran. I like what I do. I have an interesting job, and I like speaking French, and it's been a blessing to do the French Academy and to be asked to do this. I'm enjoying my work more and more, and I've given you what I think are keys for a good conversation activity, to build a good conversation activity. I did make a short list. Okay, one of them, other than the ones I've already showed you, is called story completion. Now, I've done this in writing, but I want to try it in speaking. And I hope it doesn't take away my credibility, because I haven't yet done it in speaking, but where the students, one person starts a story, and then the next student has to write the next part, like just one sentence. Un jour, j'étais à la plage. One day I was at the beach. And the next student would write, et puis il y avait un requin, and there was a shark. And then the next student writes something else. And when we did it in writing, it like went from left to right in the classroom, where my classroom is 4 desks deep and about 6 desks across, and they had like 30 seconds to 40 seconds to write one sentence and pass it down. And then by the end, there were these really hilarious, absurd, surreal stories that really made them laugh. And one of the ways to do it is with speaking. The only problem is that it's easier with a smaller group to be in a circle and have one student start a story and the next student say it. Instead of having it written down, they say it. And also, that's a way to practice. And as you go into the upper levels, that's when you have, there is an EduSpeak word for this, and I can't remember what it is, but the words that help link your phrases together, like, and then, after that, so, all those words that link ideas together and help to give you fluidity in your speech. That's an excellent way to, this exercise is a good way to practice that. It's in role-playing. Okay, all of us have textbooks, I'm assuming, and often our textbooks, they say there are short role-playing exercises. And I think there are excellent things in our book. I think this is one of the things that isn't as, ce n'est pas aussi fort. I don't think that it's the best thing our textbooks offer. When there are the short role-playing things, okay, pretend you are the salesperson for this and this person's coming to buy this. I think when the kids have to quickly put themselves in another role, they feel more detached from what they're doing. But if they have time to be creative in a skit, okay, and I like skits, it is, of course, it's memorization. It's not, you're not going towards building conversation, but they are practicing their speaking. But if they have the time to create something, they get more into it. So I am for surveys. Survey is what the weather, like I did when you're asking a question, or in the Annenberg video, that's what they were doing as well. They were surveying their fellow students. They actually had to also, in one part, they had to find someone else with the same dislikes as they did. And this will also be on the website. This website actually gives a list of speaking activities. It's by someone who works in ESL, so teaching English as a second language. And it'll also be on the UNL website. You can click on, bring you to the site, and it does give a list, a more detailed list of activities. But the ones I chose on the previous, or up there, survey, role-playing, story completion, those are the ones that I'm more familiar with. So I didn't want to tackle the ones that I have yet to experiment with myself. Okay. What I'd like to do, I'm going to do a little resume, a summary of what we've just done, everything I've gone through. And then we'll have a time for questions. And then we'll probably still have quite a bit of time left. What I wanted to do was to give you an opportunity actually to write, to create a speaking activity, because I know we all have tons of time, and that you've had tons of time to come over here and you're not very busy. Ha ha ha. So if during this time we do have some time to actually make something that we can use and share it, that would be great. But first of all, introduce or review the necessary vocabulary, expressions, and constructs. Clearly state directions and expectations. Be sure the activity requires a task. Students have choices. There are personal choices involved. That something in the activity leads them to elaborate ideas. And you can do this in the lower levels. And the example I gave us with the weather, like you can say, okay, quelle est ta saison préférée? What's your favorite season? L'hiver. Okay. Pourquoi? Why? And they already have the expressions there, even in the lower levels, to be able to answer that. Parce qu'il fait beau, parce qu'il fait frais. You know, because it's nice out, because it snows, because it rains. So even in the lower levels, you can incorporate elaboration. Of course, model the activity, show them exactly what you're looking for, exactly what you expect. Include some kind of tangible accountability. Now, when I say that, a tangible, I'm talking about that they had that paper that they had to write on, or in the video we saw, or in my lesson, the paper where they had to record their answers. It really helps them to focus. And then, of course, accountability afterwards as well, where you're asking them questions. But first, during the activity, remember to monitor and participate. Questions. You know, ask them what they learned about their classmates.